Welcome back to the Flogsville podcast. It is the semi-final wrap. We're in the second week of finals, and it was a low-scoring round. This round, it was. We've had 3 or 4 weeks of really good premium scores, good captain scores, but the weekend just gone was a lot of 80s and 90s. The taggers are back, as we alluded to last week. Joining me, we've got Coach of the Rabbitohs. Hello, Daniel.
Hello, Scott. Fantastic to be here. Very nice just to dust off the fantasy app. Haven't had it open for a week and a half. And yeah, can't wait to find out what happened last week.
Excellent, mate. Looking forward to that. Let's get straight into it, mate. If you're ready to go, our first matchup here in our semi-finals was the Burp and Burt Burtons getting the 40-point win over the Smiths Crips. And I tell you what, mate, let's have a look at this, because at the start of the week, I was watching this one quite closely, because knowing that I'd play the winner this week, of course, in our prelims. And for all money, it started very poorly for Brad. Callum fucking Mills once again delivering a 69. It just begs belief. And then you had on Liam's side, LDU was very impressive, and my man Harris Sheasel bouncing back with a 110 under the roof. And then the Gold Coast Suns boys, Anderson and Flanders, did enough. And then Rory Laird was fantastic with a 126 there. So that was a real big point. Brad was behind, and then things started to turn his way starting on that Sunday. Rabs, do you want to have a look through some of those pods?
Yeah. Oh, it's not a lot of pods, especially compared to the other matchup, which we'll get to in a minute. But I think the story of the round too was just captaincy. Captaincy was very, very difficult unless you sort of went with Laird or Ryan Marshall, who are probably the only two potential options who played quite well. It was pretty slim pickings for most coaches. And you look at it, Brad with Bont producing 100, you'd be hoping for more than that. But then when you compare it to Liam's side with the Sick Dog pumping out an 84, that's really hurts when you look at a 40-point margin overall, because looking through the pods, other than that, he'd been quite solid. Callum Mills and Josh Kelly sort of cancelling each other out there with, 70. So, yeah, a very even matchup, but captaincy, I think, has really played a key role there. And Brad, Bont, very reliable. And I think, Liam not having the Bont, we've mentioned this for a few teams, it's sort of escaped a few teams, including myself. And just a very reliable option. Hard to see him going under 100. And that's really been the difference here, having that reliable captain option.
Yeah, absolutely. And just being at the Port Giants game, Josh Kelly was just he did well to get to that 73. It was not looking good at all. Stuck on a wing since Tom Green sort of come back. Tom Green looked great, even though the Giants got smashed around the ball, was getting little plus sixes here and there. Had a big last quarter, and Zach Butters is well and truly back to that form that he showed in the middle part of the year. So big win for Brad. Liam, a good season for him once again in the eights, around the mark, just not quite this year. But let's talk about our next matchup, Rabs. It was my God, your Liberatore, who we flagged going into the finals, sort of just been struggling a little bit form-wise, Hughes' side, since the buys, really, and has turned things around the last 2 weeks with a 22-21, which was probably above par, and a convincing win over the Armour Craze. And I can't help but notice, Rabs, Sam, having played him last week, he went Dunks captain. He did it again. He went Josh Dunkley back to that, and he delivered a 61. Wow.
Yeah, it's got to hurt. And I guess on Hugh's side, Hugh had Sicily as captain, so it wasn't quite the extreme difference that it could have been if he'd had a more successful captain, but it is still quite a difference. Yeah, a captain of 60 is very difficult to win any game when that's the case. I think when you flick through it, like Hughes' team was just really, really solid. 2,200 this week, given the scores that we saw, was always going to be a pretty imposing score. And having guys like Laird and Bontempelli, as we said before, and also Butters as pods, as well as Ryan Marshall. Ryan Marshall and Max Scorn have got a 50-point differential there between those two. So that's massive. On Sam's side, a few pods sort of going okay, but then Cogs is one who potentially could have been a dangerous one for him. It ended up being a real fizzer to come home with a 60. And the game was over for him by then. But yeah, disappointing for Sam to go out in straight sets. He's been a very strong team throughout the year. But having said that, I think all of us would acknowledge that Hugh was probably the best team for the first half of the year. And it probably seems just that he's going to make the final four, even though he had some poor form in the second half of the year.
Yeah, spot on, mate. Just on Cogs, he was playing high half forward at that game, got a very good view behind the goals and just looked disinterested at times. I don't know why they threw him out of the midfield. A lot of Callan Ward in there. Toby Green was in there quite a bit as well. So I don't know. You'd think you'd want Toby Green near the goals. Personally, I'm not an expert, but I think the Giants, that won't happen again. So I think Cogs will be okay. But yeah, that was, as an owner as well, that was concerning watching him go about his work, not really getting much of the ball. And then my man Will Day, we've just got to give him again a shout out. He plays back, he plays midfield, plays forward. I just love the way he goes about it, Rabs. He just, at the end of quarters, he just goes back, floats back, gets a couple of +6s, tackles well, and just looks like an all-round good guy. Last couple of weeks, I've been, I don't know, fortunate enough, but they've the Hawks, I've been able to watch the Hawks games the last 3 weeks. I've been very impressed with Hawthorn and Sam Mitchell, but Will Day in particular has caught my eye. So a very quick word on our consolidation finals, secondary finals, whatever you want to call them. The Keys with a big 22-22, massive beating Peter G. So the Keys is alive. I think on last week's show, I said the Keys were not alive. So that was my bad. And then the Guns and Rosies, well, we thought this might happen. Unfortunately, going down to the B sharp. So yeah, that's all that needs to be said for those matchups. Let's have a look at this weekend, Rabs, because we've got some delicious prelim finals here. We've got the last four, myself, Phenomenal, the Burpin Burtons, and the Liberatores. Let's start with my matchup with Brad. This is going to be a quick preview, Rabs, because we only have 3 pods.
Yes, and because of that, I'm madly trying to, if I look like I'm just staring at my screen here, Scotty, I'm madly trying to dig up the desktop version so I can try and see how much money you guys have got to make it a little bit more interesting.
I've done a little research.
Very nice. So what have we got in the bank account, Scotty?
What have we got? I have 92K in the bank account, so not too bad. Brad has 13K, so we're both not doing that great financially. But the good news tonight, I suppose, being on a Thursday night, we get teams. Doherty seems like he's playing at the moment. So that was probably the biggest issue coming out of the weekend, which is good news for both of us, I think, especially Brad, because we look at those pods there, Rabs. On my side, I've got Parish Laird. Luke Jackson bringing him in last week with the juicy matchup against the Eagles, and then against Port and Sam Hayes. Hopefully, that's why I've got him in, basically, is for this week. So, and then on Brad's side, Lockie Neal, again, against Collingwood, shouldn't really get much attention, but Tom Green was fantastic. He's dangerous. He could do anything. And then Callum Mills, I'm sure Brad would want to move on him potentially.
Yeah, it looks a really interesting matchup. And interesting because it's going to come down to very small factors when you look at the number of pods. Captaincy, absolutely critical in matchups like this when there's not a massive opportunity to get it back. If there's a discrepancy between captains, then there's not many pods to do work with it. In terms of the pods, I think there's probably no doubt that you'd rather have your 3 than his 3 at the moment, Scott, but obviously there's still trades to come. So, you probably wouldn't expect to see Callum Mills in Brad's side. But again, he's going to have to make some really interesting decisions there about does he do a major sort of downgrade in one option to try and majorly upgrade Mills? Does he go sideways because he's looking to go sideways on someone else? We've name dropped some blokes like Cornelio for both of you, potentially not hitting the role that he wants. Even Dunkley might be potentially a downgrade option based on his score the last couple of weeks. So there are some different options available to both of you. But I think at the moment you'd probably favour your side. But again, I think captaincy will be critical because there's realistically not going to be much of a chance to make up a captaincy discrepancy. Sorry.
Nah, spot on, mate. And I think captains this week, based on teams tonight, Geelong going against your Saints with Shannon Neal in the ruck up against Ryan Marshall. I think everyone will probably have a similar vice captain. And then we've got the Bulldogs against the Eagles. You've got the two big boys in English and Bont. So 50-50 really who you go there. So again, in a week where, in a matchup where we kind of need to be different, we might not be, which is a little bit concerning, but yeah, we'll see what happens there. And yeah, just those underperforming guys. A couple of the Saints boys. Brad Crouch is a frustrating own. Tom Stewart as well potentially might get a bit of Cooper Sharman attention, like they did with Sicily a few weeks ago. And then yeah, Cogs, that forward role was gross. And even Jack Steele himself has been very disappointing, and Dunks has been terrible. I've had him for 2 weeks and I've had a 60 and an 80. It's been, yeah, shit from him. So, yeah, it'd be a very close matchup with Brad. He's been a great team all year, and very much looking forward to the 3 pods there. Let's talk about, this is a massive matchup, mate. We've got Phenomenal up against the Liberatores. Talk us through some of the pods. I've got Tom sent me through a little statement about what he intends to do. I guess a bit of a real throwback to sort of the days where we had press conferences. So talk us through some of these pods, because there's a few here.
Yeah, we've got double the amount. We've got 6 for this one, so a little bit more to unpack. And some really interesting ones, some polarizing pods, I would say. So if you look on Feno's side, he's sort of got Darcy Parish, who's been a really solid one, and Caleb Sarong, who have both been solid this year. Jaden Short has also been quite good of late, but yeah, does have the ability to sort of go in and out. And then he's got Mills, Dunkley, and McRae, who've had moments of everything really throughout the year. And then you flick over to Hughes' side, and you've got Sicily, who's been a massive yo-yo throughout the season of either 160s or 70s. It does have Brayshaw, Davies, Uniac, and Laird, who I think more recently have been quite solid. Jack Zeeble seems like he's got a more favourable role, redoing the kick-ins and these types of things now. But then he's got CD, who pumped out a 30 about a month ago. So there is a huge discrepancy between what these types of guys can produce. I think at the moment, if I was looking to tip someone, I'd probably be leaning towards Hugh, to be honest. And the main reason behind that is I just see a little bit more consistency from his pods. But that does not mean that Tom is not going to win this game, because both of them have got pods that are capable of producing over and unders. But having said that, the trade table is going to be important. And again, captaincy will be critical.
Oh, absolutely, mate. And just to highlight a few matchups, I think, yeah, Dunkley Friday night is big. That'll set the tone, because we know what Dunkley can do. But if he pulls out another stinker, it's going to be hard for Tom to come back. Jaden Shaw, I like a lot. North Melbourne, retirement game for Zeeble. So Hugh bringing him in last week and for this week. So if he makes it through to the grand final, there's a forced trade already. I love it, though, because Jack Zeeble could do anything in his last game. He's going to be hungry for the pill, and they'll give it to him too. Darcy Parish is also, I'm a little bit, as an owner, concerned. He's been in good form, but the Giants can be tough. They weren't very tough last week against Port, let me tell you that. But Jack McRae, he scored 45 last week.
Yeah. What do you say about that? That's a concern.
I love it. I love it because I've been a fan of Jack McRae, so I revel in his 45. But to have that on Tom's side, McRae and Callum Mills, it's not good. And then the Port matchup, Sarong, Brayshaw, I think Willem Drew will maybe potentially go with one of them. So Port are a tough matchup for mids. So I think I agree with you. I think Hughes got the slight advantage at the moment. But those risky players, Sicily, Zeeble, like Caleb Daniel against West Coast is probably the best case scenario for Hugh. In order, he'll probably pump out a good score. So, Tom sent me a few notes, a bit of a statement. He's excited to be fronting up for another prelim final. Small flex there, love that. After some strong late season form, my God, your Liberatore have been the benchmark all season. and put together an inspired performance in the semi-final after their coach welcomed the newest member of their franchise. We've had our own issues with cash generation in recent weeks and with limited bench options and forced trades. However, we will look to get creative at selection and address some of the key issues, such as Callum Mills, who's proven over a number of years he's not a big game player. So there you go. That's from Tom. Wow.
Getting creative, very strong words, and looking forward to seeing what that means. And just a few comments there that just really trying to play the underdog tag to me there, Scott, which has not gone unnoticed, combined with a flex as well. So a lot going on in that statement, but a lot to read into it. And I think Hugh's the favourite, and that statement probably confirmed it.
Yeah. Finished second. Had a week off last week. I know he's had forced trades. But yeah, Mills and McRae, the two M's, that's tough. Get creative. They're both with not much cash. Mills is he's been in the 600s like for ages, it seems. He just hasn't gone up. And McRae's dropping a little bit there with 742. So looking, Matt Crouch areas, that kind of, maybe he goes Zeeble, Fenno, just matching that potentially. So it's going to be really interesting, mate.
Absolutely.
All right, a very quick word on our prelim finals. It's not quite the prelims of the secondary finals that we had in mind, but Hoffleberry FC, we predicted they'd make it through. Up against the B Sharps, are we seeing a Surge progress through to a grand final here?
Yes, we are.
Perfect. And then we've got Total Eclipse of the Heart up against the Keys, which would be a very interesting matchup. Both been in better form of recent times. Who do you see taking the chocolates here and getting into that grand final?
I think flicking through those pods, I would be leaning towards Total Eclipse of the Heart.
Okay, there we have it. Flogsville Legends. Well, I haven't called you that in a long time. Flogsville Legends. Good luck on the weekend. All the coaches involved. It's sure going to be an exciting weekend for all involved, and we've just got 2 weeks to go. So if you're out of it, make some fun trades. Bring in Zeeble, bring in Tex, Trent Cotchin, Jack Rewalt. Bring in all these retired players. Have a bit of fun with it. That's all I want to say. Anything else from you, Rabs, before we finish here?
No, go well to those playing in finals. Good luck to you, Scotty, and your boys. And we look forward to going through it all next week and previewing a grand final.
Exciting times. It's been a big season. Far out. 24 rounds it's a lot, isn't it? Too much.
It's long.
It's a long season. It's a long season. All right. Good luck, everybody. We'll catch you next week for the GF.